We are on the last item that we have for today, so it's a conversation with the HR Department and Government and Casino. So some background information for anyone viewing this. So I can't remember the exact timeline. Roughly about a year ago, we decided to fractionate HR and be able to provide our casino with their own HR. It was due to them wanting to be able to meet the unique needs of being able to hire people in the gaming industry. Since then, we've requested some measurables which have verified that that decision was the correct one to make, and that's not a slight on our government HR in any way. But we wanted to bring both HRs back to the room to try to figure out if we can learn from both HRs. Maybe there's something that the casino is doing really well, maybe there's something that the government's doing well that the casino can learn. But at the end of the day, we want to expedite the hiring process. We don't want to have a situation where people are applying for jobs and waiting months for a callback. We want to have everything accomplished when people leave certain positions, like exit interviews and things of that nature. So that's where we're coming from with today's conversation. So government, HR, if you guys want to begin first, you guys have a presentation for us? And for the board's information, this item is open to the membership, but if we have to get into the weeds and talk about specific individuals or specific employees, we will have to move it into close. So I'm hoping we can avoid that today. So whenever you guys are ready.
Just give me 1 second to get hooked up here. Appreciate your patience. I'm just trying to log into the Zoom here. Pretty excited to have my computer back. Appreciate you waiting. I'm jumping on here so that I can share.
Recording in progress.
How's that? At least I'm not getting the back feed there. Thank you, everyone, for giving me a few moments there to set up. Cheryl Nolan, Governmental and Enterprise HR Director. To my right is Ms. Sarah Zimmerman. She is the administrative assistant in our department, and I can't do anything without her. She is my right hand. She is amazing. She is here today taking notes for me. So this is Sarah Zimmerman. What I'm going to do today is, let me pull up the presentation. What I'd like to share with everyone is it looks, so far so good, Lana. It looks like I should be able to just move through it too. So I appreciate that backup plan that you had. What I'm going to do for everyone is a few weeks back, actually before February 29th, right before that, myself as director and obviously keeping in communications with Christine and the request from the board, Christine is my supervisor, I was provided the information, the request that you had mentioned earlier, Austin, is a list of questions that all pertain to giving measurable stats and analysis for.
I'm just going to make it full screen.
Go ahead, thank you. I could have done that too, thank you. And then it's. Thank you, Ashley. So I have 2 pages in front of me of questions and covering the time frame of June of 2024 to December of 2024, requesting the Governmental and Enterprise HR Department to provide this measurable data to yourself, the leadership, the board of directors. So I went ahead and done that. I worked with my team and we provided together and put this PowerPoint together on these questions on this list that we're going to be reviewing today. So what I'll do on this presentation is I'll go through a little bit of history on the organizational chart, and especially since Quaden, it was actually March 1st of 2024 was the actual effective full run date that we worked together with Diane and them prior, but that would be our whole kickoff date. I'll show the organization chart prior to that. I'll show the organization chart today, the impact of it, and then I'll get into the PowerPoint that shows the measurable data, right, on the PowerPoint. I'm going to end the PowerPoint with what we have also done during that time frame. At the end, if you have any questions for me, there'll be spots in there too to reach out and ask any questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the measurable data from June of 2024 to December of 2024. And like I said, if you see in front of you, this was the prior HR org chart when it was unified, or when we were all together prior to the Kuwaitan developing their HR department. So during that time, this is the full staff of the prior HR org chart. When Kuwaitan had implemented and began setting up, and as of March 1st of 2024, had begun their HR department during that time, actually prior to it, to be proactive. We had to evaluate, with not providing those services to Kuwaitan, reevaluate the positions within our org chart to see which were highly necessary or which ones needed to be, restructure within the department. During that time, we had 19 team members. Kuwaitan opens up its own HR department. The decision is made on my end, along with my supervisor's input. 3 positions in front of you were not filled. They were vacated when we separated the HR departments, but from that point forward, we no longer have an HR manager position. We no longer have a recruiter, and we no longer have an HR clerk. And that HR is specifically a file room clerk. So I want to note that. It's not a clerk as reception or anything. It's a file room clerk. So those 3 positions are no longer with us. This is where we're at today. You will see our current HR department org chart. I do want to make a note. During the prepping of this presentation, I had a resignation. It is accurately to reflect today. We have 15 team members total. On this org chart, there's no longer a training coordinator position. In my role as HR director, ever since the time that the resolution was implemented and approved back in September of 2023, there was the announcement of creating these HR departments, correct? I have been proactive since then to look at what the future holds as far as Kuwaitan getting an HR, this HR department in governmental, health getting an HR department. So to give an example, this training coordinator position, there's no longer open. I will not be refilling that. I am always looking at what the future looks like for our department, including other implementation of HR departments. It's only right to be proactive and take this approach ahead of time because I have 95% of my team members are Sioux Tribe members. So just know that that's always something that I'm proactively looking at. We are now down to 15. I am not posting that or replacing that training coordinator position. So that is us today. When we look at the overall, based on the request of data from June 20 of 24 to December of 2024, I want to talk a little bit about our total team members that we serve, and that's obviously one of the main questions here. I want to break it down for us. When we look at the difference between Kuwaitan casinos and governmental and enterprise and health and housing, right? Diane and I have these conversations. We keep each other, we talk often, right? So when we look at the governmental portion, just as governmental alone, there are 482 team members. 83 of those team members are in management, supervisory, and executive roles. Right, so if one of those team members leave, that is a position that's going to require a degree when you refill that position. Now, thankful that we have our best practices resolution. The position may require a degree, but we have in place our best practices and/or experience. But these are not frontline positions. These are management and executive roles. Just in governmental alone, there are 83 individuals in that capacity. At the housing, with 55 team member totals, they have 8 executive manager or higher roles. In the enterprise, there's 14 that are executive and director roles. In health, with 285 team members, they have 36 management and executive level roles. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in my presentation when we start talking about covered positions and background checks and things like that, okay? I'll go to the next one. One of the screenshots in front of you is the request was there to look at what positions we currently have in our HR department and what those positions do. The best way, what I have in front of you, is to look at the position summary for that role. And those are all in front of you for the positions we currently have in the governmental and enterprise department. Obviously, not being able, you can eliminate the training coordinator one. Employment, employee relations, training, and HR admin. Those are your position summaries for each role in the HR department. And then I'll go on to, I'm going to start phasing into the employment department when we look at the stats and data, right? And this is going to be key because we're having the communication at all time at looking at hiring practices and what are our barriers to the hiring practices. Where can we improve? We can always improve, right? We can always stay abreast with the trends and the moving, fast-paced work environment. As we get into the request for data, some of the key points that's been requested on behalf of this board is how many positions have been filled since June of 2024 to December of 2024. What I want to share with you today, there's a lot of data in this little graph. What I want to share with you today is what I believe you're looking for based on your request. And if I'm wrong, we can also add other questions in there. Total numbers from this June to December of 2024, 339 job offers were made. It's as equally important to say 270 positions were filled. In that total amount of 339 job offers, it's just as important to say 47 of those are internal transfers. 47 internal transfers in our company open up 47 new positions to fill. So it's important to look at your transfers. It's important to look at people that are recalled from layoff. Those are in that total of 339. Promotions. There's been promotions within the company. That's going to open up other vacancies too. So the total number of how many people were hired in that full movement is 339 from June to December of 2024. Let's talk about the job offers that are declined. In this presentation, one of the most important things I want to share in this presentation is to talk about the barriers to the hiring process from different levels. Job offers being declined at this point, 339 offers were made, 270 started. 54 job offers were declined for 2 reasons. My data and my stats show 2 reasons. Now, there's also other reasons. There's 2 main reasons. It is the pay. It is the rate of pay when the new hire or even your internal or your promotions, they may not accept that promotion. It is our rate of pay that we're offering during that time for these positions. Number two, what is it? It was not only the rate of pay, but it is, I have no issues being transparent in this room. There are delays in our internal processes coming from certain levels, and we'll talk more about those shortly here in a little bit. There's delays in the hiring process, the ones that we control within our HR department. I'm going to share with you today before I leave the hiring policies that are coming in front of you. I am scheduled already on March 25th. Thank you, Lana. I can list them out today, the hiring policies, the new ones that are going to outline every barrier that I'm talking about in this presentation. I'm excited to bring them back. Thank you, Lana, sharing them. They do talk about management delay. They do talk about applicant delay. Maybe I'm just not going to fill out my application or resume right. Maybe I gave an outdated phone number, right? All of these policies address, I believe, every avenue that we can move forward on and correct right away. Remote work policy. There are job offers specifically in the ones that are declined, and I want to be transparent today. We are not offering or have the capability to offer the remote work option. I know of at least 10 out of those 54 that were declined is because the actual department itself could not accommodate remote work. Remote work option with the Sioux Tribe, we advertise it, we display it, we push out that incentive. We're missing applicants on that. That is a huge trend in the work environment right now as far as the remote work and hybrid option. Now, a lot of people do, but we need to take more advantage of that.
Okay,
Go
Lana
ahead.
has a question.
So with us passing the remote work policy and us, supporting that, when the supervisor or manager say we can't accommodate that, is there a justification as to why they
Well-
can't? Or is it just kind of like, we don't want to?
What
So
we're
we
seeing.
miss those 54 people?
Yeah, what we're seeing on our end, and obviously when the applicant that's being selected is asking that, there's always constant communication between our employment and the hiring manager. Some people just cannot because they don't have the space, and it is based on, this is what our hiring managers are telling us, they just cannot, and they can't accommodate it based on space or other internal reasons.
Okay.
And we don't track the denied remote work agreements at this time, so I can't fully answer all of it. I know that the management team is sharing. I can't at this time, but I know it's a popular demand with job applicants.
So when they say, and I said I wouldn't speak, but when they say that we offer the remote work policy, they apply for the job, they get selected for the job, and then they're said, well, we can't do that, that's just a whole waste of everybody's time and whatever.
No, thank you for saying that. That's a good point. Mostly the position itself, the hiring manager through the interview process and employment, when they're setting everything up, they know at that time whether it's remote work.
And then the other question I have is, you stated that some of the people that didn't accept the job or go forward is because of the rate of pay.
Yes.
Now, I know through the last years and years, we said, post the rate of pay, don't post the rate of pay, post the rate of pay. So right now, we're at posting the rate of pay.
Yes, you're correct.
So how come they would decline if they know the rate of pay?
Well, they like to negotiate. Well, a lot of them like to negotiate too. They do know the rate of pay when they apply or
They
interview
think
for the
that
position.
somebody tells
Some
them they're going
don't.
to get more.
Yeah, some don't, but they all try to get more, right? But
Okay.
some don't. I mean, it's up to the individual, like what they want to do was they're prepping for the
Okay.
interview. They didn't even look at the rate of pay, to be honest with you.
Okay, and these aren't old issues, these aren't new issues, they've been.
No.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Aaron?
Well, that was going to be my question, actually. So they're playing the field is what they're doing. They're trying to see
Absolutely.
what they can get. Do we post a rate for everybody, or is it at a certain level higher or a certain level lower, or?
At the higher executive, you could post the dependent based on experience or the negotiable or dependent upon.
Do we put a
experience.
number and then say commensurate with education and experience?
I believe so on them, especially when we're talking the higher up ones.
Okay.
Yeah, like your executive or higher, or director, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess just a clarification, if I remember correctly, the remote work is based on whether or not the department can accommodate the remote. So when we post that, it might be misleading in a way, because they might apply for it thinking that they are going to be able to do a remote. But I do think, and we should have a requirement that if they can't accommodate a remote work detail, they should have to write a justification, and it should be maintained in HR or the executive office or something. Because just because they don't want the convenience of it, or if the manager's like, no, I got to sit my butt here, you're going to have to be here too. So if it's something as ignorant as that,
Well,
rather
let me
than-
correct that. Maybe I didn't say that right earlier. If there's a job posting right now, say it's for an executive assistant, or there's a job posting right now, the posting itself, not everyone has remote work on it. We have on our cover homepage, not every job posting says remote work option. Now, it will if the hiring manager says, I have the remote work availability. So not every posting says individually posting remote work option. All of our recruitment, your homepage of the website, we advertise as a benefit and an option.
Let me ask this.
Yeah,
Do
so.
we still do requisitions to get
Yes.
a position posted? Can we put on there
Yeah.
a box, and then the person requisitioning it has to check it? And
Mm-hmm.
let's ask the question, remote or not. If they check no, let's ask the question, what is the reason why it can't be provided remotely? And
Yeah.
that way, at least somebody else could take a look at it and say, well, just because
Yeah.
you have to sit in the office is not a good reason why you shouldn't do remote. Because some professional positions, we seem to have evolved as a society through the pandemic, but it seems like we have devolved because the federal government just pulled back all remote details.
Yes.
All of them are gone now. So, it's interesting at NHB, because I worked there for a little while I was gone. A whole cadre of the professional level staff have never worked other than remote.
Yeah.
And then when they had to come back to the office, they quit. There's a huge number of young people who just said, I'm not working in an office.
Yeah,
so-
because you have a whole different applicant pool right now with your Gen X and your changes through time, right, and the trends, and you can see that in our applicant pools, right? So we'll talk more about that because the remote work policy itself is coming back to this leadership. There had been a request on another matter. That remote work policy, the entire thing is coming back to the board.
So I have a question. So was I correct in hearing that we don't track denials?
So HR department itself, what we do is we track the approved remote work policy. So if we have that database of the approved remote work policies, but we don't know within HR if a hiring manager has a team member come to him tomorrow morning and says, hey, you know what, I want to do remote. Can we look at a remote work agreement for maybe 3 days out of the week? It's that internal department function that we don't track that.
Well, I think there's a
If they-
mistake, and this is why. The Board of Directors elected to provide this as an accommodation to our workforce. Just with the changing work environments, we have certain positions that are difficult to fill, and they exist in fields where other entities outside the tribe provide that accommodation. So how do we know if a manager is disproportionately denying those requests? Because I've had program managers lobby when we were having this discussion, we can't do remote work, we can't do remote work. And then it passes and we're supposed to be providing that accommodation to our workforce. And then I hear from workers in that department like, hey, I just submitted a request to work remotely and it was denied. If we're not tracking that, how do we know whether or not employees are treated fairly across the tribe and that accommodation is provided to everybody?
Right. I agree. It is in front of you it is in front of this leadership board on March 25th. Remote work is in there. If you would like to talk about other options to expedite it closer before March 25th, it is already in the agenda for you.
Okay, so we will be discussing
So I made
this.
the note to add that also.
Okay.
Prior leadership had asked that, how are we measuring your productivity on those remote work agreements?
Okay. Before we move on, I want to turn things over to Rob. He has his hand up with a
Okay.
question or comment.
Oh, I was going to say something similar, and it's why I asked to have this reworkshopped, is because I don't think that it should be left completely to managers' discretion. I think that we need to have a policy review where we figure out how we're going to implement the remote work policy, and we're all well aware of what positions offer it. I think we need to offer it whenever we can to compete in the job market. Yeah, that's I agree with what the chairman just said, is that we need to know how it's being approved or not approved, and more so not approved, because a lot of times when it's not approved, it very well could be used. But I think that we need to have a uniform policy and review each of our departments and figure out which ones are and classify them as such. So that way there's no real question. People know when they apply, and then people have a fair and accurate answer, even if they've been in the position for 5 years and like, hey, I could do this from home. Why am I not allowed to? Well, let's move in that direction.
Okay, Lana, then Bridget.
Yeah, this is frustrating to hear, because I was a holdout on the remote work policy for these simple reasons right here. How are we going to collect the data? How's the justification going to be there? And if it comes down to, is it just going to be pick and choose? And it sounds like when this board passed the remote work policy, those mechanisms weren't put in place, just as Austin had kind of stated. Because I was one of the ones that said, let's make sure that it's fair across the board. So if they are denied, there is a justification why they're denied. The follow-up wasn't done. We have the policy in place, but it comes down to, if I got to, just like Aaron said, if I got to be at the office, you got to be at the office. So, we put something in place, the follow-through wasn't there, and I'll be glad to have the discussion on that, because we're missing the mark, and that shows it right there.
Right.
What
So
you
what I-
described, so.
Thank you. And this request to bring the remote work back, like I said, it's actually item number 4, the March 25th agenda. I do want to clarify something. When we did implement the remote work policy and it went across the entire company as far as notices, communications, and meetings on it, the mechanism is there. I can tell you what department manager, what director themselves, every single position in this company, that director had to evaluate each one, what's approved to be eligible for remote work and what's approved to be denied. I have that. We did track that. I can report on that. So I can definitely bring that back to me. We did track those mechanisms and why they denied them. I can get that. We have that database saying every position that we have right now, who's been denied at this point for government. Keep in mind, the governmental enterprise and housing and health at that
So
time.
you're saying we have that data?
I
We
have
just
the
haven't
database
compiled
of-
it and done a report and an analysis? Okay. All
Yeah.
right, Bridget.
Well, I would like to see when a team member puts the request in that there's either on the form or an email that is includes HR, because I think supervisors are just picking and choosing or denying it just to deny it. And that way HR is involved and can give back some input. It could be reported, and then it's fair because they're being involved, not just the supervisor, making those choices. I understand they're reporting to those supervisors, but I think some supervisors just don't want to deal with it from people I've talked to. So, thanks.
Okay, so I don't see any more hands up, so we can keep going to the presentation, actually.
So the
Aaron.
solution is to put it on the requisition form and have them justify one way or the other. If they say, no, this can't be a remote detail, because what is different today than what was the case a couple years ago is we're not in the middle of a pandemic now. So that's not a good argument to say I don't want to come to work just because I don't want to come to work. But if it's a professional position, and we may lose that person, and that's where the manager posting the position should be compelled to say, this can be a remote work, this cannot be a remote work. And if they check that it is a remote, they should provide a justification either way, whether it is or not, so, on the requisition form.
Okay. All right, we can keep going, Cheryl.
Okay.
Oh, just a second, Austin, I re-raised my hand.
Okay, go ahead.
Just a response to Aaron, this wasn't just about recruiting, this was about retention too. So as far as the requisition, that would only be job openings, but this was supposed to be open to current team members if this could help them out too.
Absolutely. So we'll talk about this in greater detail at the workshop after next. Go ahead, Cheryl.
It's actually item number 4. Thank you. I recorded all of your important feedback. So as we look more at the employment department, what I did when I put this presentation together, I put the data in there and the measurable data. You will see within each department within the human resources, I put common delays and challenges. At some of these slides I know that you have the information and I have listed numbers in there and descriptors. Know that every page on this presentation, when I conclude today, it is tied to a policy that is coming back to you March 25th. So I may repeat myself, but just a heads up, instead of reading through every single line, I mean, I'll be here forever in the presentation, but every page is coming back for the hiring policies and procedures and the delays, okay? So in the employment itself, the average time from posting from the first day of work, that's going to vary based on how you can post a position, but the steps within it, interviewing, recommending, and so on. So at times, in a synopsis, at times we have the applicant today. It's not a delay. It's not uncommon at all to have somebody not give us a phone number or an email. We have an updated automated system. We have an updated applicant tracking software program that will red flag that. And so when you submit an application for a position right now and you do not fill it out completely, say you're missing a phone number or you don't put the address in or anything on how we can get a hold of you, it won't let you submit it. It is an incomplete application. The applicant gets that immediately. Your application's incomplete. We get it on our end too. And then we talked earlier, we'll talk more with the barriers in the hiring process about management delay. There's various reasons internally on that. More than 46% of our posted positions are delayed due to an internal result or delay taking action in the hiring process. That is addressed in these policies, these hiring policies coming your way on March 25th. So in a nutshell, go ahead, sorry.
Go ahead, Kim.
What is an example of the 46% delay? Like what, can you give me an example?
I would love to give you an example. I brought one with me today. Each position varies, right, per hiring manager, but let me give you this example of one we were just talking about this morning. We have a position that's posted on December 23rd. Now, mind you, it's a holiday. Excuse me, tell me if you can't, I'm not speaking loud enough. We have a position within the company that's posted on December 23rd. That's a holiday, so give it a couple days. Over the holiday season, we got some interesting applicants right away. January 6th, the positions are screened. They are sent to the hiring manager to start looking at the qualified applicants and get the interviews. Let us know when you're going to start conducting interviews. You can even do one better and self-schedule your interviews from that packet instead of us doing them for you. You can schedule them yourself. On January 7th, management was undecided whether or not they wanted to do interviews. They just weren't sure. They needed more time to think about when and if they were going to do the interviews. January 21st, there's 2 email follow-ups from January 7th from the employment department. What are you doing? What are you doing? How can we help? When are you going to do interview? January 21st, the manager says, okay, I'll do interviews. I'll let you know when I'm going to do interviews, you know, from that packet you sent me on January 6th of qualified applicants. Mm-hmm. February 6th, the manager calls back and says, I'm going to hold the interviews now. Let's go ahead and do those in the next couple of days. Qualified applicants, after February 6th, emails of follow-up go out to the hiring manager. February 18th, the hiring manager sends over the PAF to hire for that position. The job offer is made upon receipt of those personnel action forms when they're received with the approved signature and information to the employment department. On February 18th, the job offer is made. The young man comes in and does his pre-employment paperwork, and he's starting by February 23rd. So from the job offer of actually the 19th, he filled out his paperwork. He started on the 23rd. But that position was posted on December 23rd. From January 6th up until that young man starting on February 23rd, that's an example of some delays. So as you notice on the sheet in front of us, when we look at these different delays
Carol,
I'm
Can you hold
sorry.
up just 1 second? Kim, go ahead.
Okay, so then what is done after that? As far as whether that be reporting up to somebody's supervisor, what is done from the HR process to, I guess, correct management and staff who is not essentially doing their job?
I'm going to bring forward, after I have the executive feedback, but for the March 25th policy and review for the hiring process, it's called recruitment and selection policy. We already have one. I'm adding specific timeframes in there for a timely process that comes from the SHRM, our SHRM industry standards on the average time frame from posting a position to being a job offer in the industry. And right now, non-exempt, it is 10 business days from posting a position, having the applicants interviewing and making that selection. A norm is 10 business days. I'm going to submit to this leadership board some timeframes that we need, that I believe will help in this process. And if those timeframes are not met and there's exceptions to it, I'm going to do the tracking to the actual executive over that division and keep them posted on those that are outstanding that far out. They'll have to talk to the team. I can assist. I can't lead a horse to water when you're going to hire that person. We will get you the tools to get the qualified applicant there when we have it and get the packet and all of that. But when you actually conduct that interview yourself, we have the communication there. I can't tell you you have to do interviews on Monday. What I can recommend is the industry standards on interviewing, the right way to do it, and how to submit the paperwork, right? We can make those recommendations.
I think via policy and procedure that we can lead the horse to water, and if it chooses not to drink, then we deal with it. I don't think that that should be an option, whether or not you want to do your job. If we post a position, we should be hiring for it. And as far as this conversation even goes, and that's to HR as a whole or any director as a whole, if we've got problems, we need to fix them. We need to be proactive.
Yes.
So I just think that we are so far behind in everything that we're doing, and there's no reason for it. So that's all.
Aaron?
So I agree with you. She said she can't lead them to water, but we can create policy that can compel it. Because in the past, no names, but we had a very strong personality on the board that every time insisted and beat up HR to say, you're not regulatory. And so we need to make them regulatory because there should be truth in when there's a vacancy, when it's posted, how long it would take, and the staff should not pick and choose whether they do their job or if it's time to do their job or if they don't want to do it or they don't want to fill it or they're waiting for their friend to apply for the job. You know, that's still a very prominent situation. The other thing is where I see or have seen a lot of the bottleneck is when somebody leaves, the manager, not the HR manager, the manager is just not experienced enough. They have no idea what to do. They're intimidated, they're worried, they're stressed out. They don't want to call HR to look like they're stupid. They don't know what to do. The moment that somebody gives their notice, that position should be prepared and posted. And so where it bottlenecks up is the person who doesn't know how to write a job description. Usually we ask them to revisit the job description so they could update it or change it or whatever that's necessary. Not change it for the friend. Again, that happens a lot. But get that position posted immediately. And then the other argument they use is, well, we can't do it until we get a budget amendment or a change to the budget. No, you can post the position. You can't post the amount if you're asking for a change, but you're wasting valuable time if you take 4 weeks to figure that all out, figure out what kind of changes, how to update it, how to write a requisition, all of that. And I can tell you that when I was chair, sometimes we had staff that knew how to do it, that didn't know how to do it. So the thing is, you just get on the horn and call HR and say, HR, what do I need to do? and they'll tell you step 1, step 2, step 3. So maybe they give preference to the chair's office, I don't know, but I have to believe that anybody that calls them, they will walk them through that process. So I think that's mostly where it trips up, in the requisition process and posting it and waiting to find out whether or not they're going to get a cost adjustment on it. I know health, and health is not in here, or health is in here, but you're still new, so you don't have to take blame for it. They're horrible for it. They have waited up to 3 or 4 months sometimes after a position's been vacant before they even do the requisition. So the whole chain has to be evaluated, and and it sounds like you're updating some policies to do that, but the manager does need to be the responsible party. You can't put it off on anybody else, and you can't blame HR, because if the manager's not doing what they're supposed to do, it doesn't even get moving in the system until they do their part.
And we'll talk more about that with actual data and stats when we get to the training department, because it is a step further than that. Instead of them calling us, we've already came to them and attempted. I'm going to show you numbers on those that have attended our actual hiring process training module, in person, virtual, and the hard copy that they get to take with them. I'm going to show you some number in training for people that have been contacted and met with and trained in the book. I'm going to show you those numbers when we get to training. It's not waiting for them to call us. That disappeared a while back. We go to them, right? So we're going to talk about training here. There's specific customized on the hiring process itself, how to do all those steps. It's been there for over a year, and takeaways, so.
Okay, we can keep going, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. So as we go more into the employment department, second page here, at the end of this, it's not only showing the stats and the data and discussing the barriers to our hiring process, but what are we going to do about it? What I'm going to show you is what we've already done about it, the action that was taken prior to all of this, and I'm going to conclude the presentation with it to show you what we have done to increase that, including those training manuals, sessions. I apologize. So I'm in the position now with the training and the individuals. If you don't know how to do it right now, I'd be surprised. You know, maybe you don't want to come to the training, but we'll talk about that here shortly. One of the things that took effect right away was, and that you're going to see coming with you, is right now in the governmental section, or within our HR department itself, there are positions right now per the drug-free work policy that is in place right now, the drug-free workplace. It requires us to do the pre-employment drug screening for each applicant. We are going to request and be back in front of you to only do the pre-employment drug screening. We're going to request to update the drug-free workplace policy. For pre-employment drug screening, it should be for covered and safety sensitive only. That'll cut your time in half on these positions that we have. Right, they are safety sensitive and covered positions. Those are the ones that you should be getting a pre-employment drug screening for. So that will be back in front of you too. Let's go back to application screening process. All of these challenges in front of us, incomplete paperwork, things like that again. That is in your training sessions that we come right to your site and do, or you can do virtually, or you can schedule them within the training department. We have openings throughout the entire month. Our calendars are always on the intranet, posted, sent out within the company. We'll talk about the Gaming Commission as far as what we have at our point is we have two different things going on. There are positions that require that gaming license, and these are governmental positions that are housed within COADN, such as purchasing and shipping and receiving, going through and getting their gaming license. They are governmental positions, but they still have to meet that criteria, including the IT department. The Gaming Commission themselves has always been amazing as far as quick turnaround and working with us. Anytime we shoot something over, a turnaround result and receipt is usually up to 1 to 2 business days. That question was asked also. Now, we're going to talk here in a moment with the Employee Relations Department. Those are positions that require a gaming license. We're going to talk about background checks here in just a moment. There is some data in front of you. I'm going to walk you through it because it's so small and tiny with the Employee Relations Department. Working along with the Gaming Commission, there are background checks that we conduct, and we will send over to Gaming to run a couple of the processes, the checks for us on the background check process. They also do the re-adjudication process for us. So if you're in a covered position, a background covered position, policy states that every 5 years you have to come back. If you're employed with us, there's different timeframes in there to be re-adjudicated. So you have a whole fresh check ran with you. Those are things that Gaming helps us with also. There was data, requests for data as far as how many terminations from June to December. Background checks, you can see in there, there's adjudications, how many we did, how many averages from that time frame, voluntary terminations and involuntary terminations. Any questions at this screen as far as terminations? That process itself has increased in, as far as efficiency and the ease of the processing of the paperwork, because there's also another specialized training, how to do due process. You're going to want to be trained and work with us and gather, we're here for you. Look at the paperwork, look at all of the data on the team member before you do a termination. Do your due diligence and take the due process training so that there's no, as far as legal ramifications or undue or injustice when you're processing terminations. Training department, we're going to talk about them. Since June and through December, there were 536 team members that looked at our training opportunities. These training opportunities, we have individual on-site training opportunities that we do in our training calendar. We also do off-site. We will come to your area and do different types of training sessions. We have over 1,300 different virtual and professional training development courses. That's where you can see on the bottom there, RISE is our professional development training module for virtual sessions that you can do at your leisure and do yourself at your computer, access virtual online. Every team member that is hired that has an email has access to these RISE virtual training sessions. The different types of opportunities that the training department offers and different types of methods and ways to conduct training, those are all shared in great detail during our orientation sessions. So any new hire, rehire, any of them coming aboard, they know how to access all of this information. We do track our RISE training modules, I'm sorry, I can't talk, and see who's taking them, how long they're taking them, who just clicks that screen really quick and gets it done within 15 seconds. All of that with our virtual and our training software, we have the capabilities to do that. It's more important to say that there has been a large demand for the training department to build customized training sessions for you. We will come and see you. They'll develop with you what type of training session you want customized for your area. Betting we're probably already going to have it. So we'll develop that for your team. We will come on site and conduct those upon your request. Some really popular ones that we have on file and that we have built are Word, Excel, communication, conflict resolution, customer service. Conflict resolution is a big one. The hiring process, due process, how to deal with stress. I say this on more than one occasion all the time because it's one of my favorite. We are at the Lodge of Hope monthly. We go up there and we'll meet with the management team, but we will meet with the residents too for anybody. Those are the individuals that we want to help get a job first, and we do help them as far as how to dress. Resume building, things like that. Those are the individuals at Lodge of Hope. Those are the ones that we are up there every month, and we want to see who needs help finding employment. And we also work with the actual management team themselves. We were just there. We went in February. Stress management, dealing with difficult people, things like that. So I'm really proud of that. It's not uncommon at all for us to go to Chimacua. Housing is a big fan. They're always calling us. ACFS, Enterprise, Dan at the Enterprise on the West End. We worked closely with Dan during this time frame here. The West End individuals, they hire on the spot. We train them how to do I-9s. They're not we train them, we monitor them. They have the capabilities to hire right on the spot, including compliance and an ability to do an I-9 form. So that took care of that process. You can see here how many orientations conducted. Those are new hires and rehires. To include, let me just flip over here. We also have a HR department itself for key employee. When they come aboard, they meet with each one of us individually, and we spend time with them, not only their one-on-one orientation sessions, but also to get to know us and to share what we are there for and to make their transition into their new role as a key employee successful. We do everything we can, and we make sure that we form a close, immediate relationship with them for key employees.
Okay, Kim Lee has a question or comment.
What are we doing as far as training to incentivize people?
I'm sorry, what do you mean by that? As far as the training
So-
software or different things that we have?
So employees that we have, what are we doing to incentivize them to train?
Well, on our end, as far as HR itself, because we're not with them every day, right? We do have time with them in the training. We are recruiting and working with them on getting professional development courses. As far as incentivizing them is just empowering them to promote our professional development courses and going through that. We're not with them on the actual field every day, so we have them in orientation.
I
we
just wonder if it would be
promote.
beneficial to do some sort of certification hours, something that builds people's resumes and profiles so they can either move up within the company or, and then also incentivize people to look to build that training up.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because we do provide certificates right there. Even if you're taking a virtual one, you do get a certificate and the data entry is included into your master file in our J.D. Edwards system. So you can see yourself the progress that you're making. A hiring manager can go in there and see what their individual team member has. We data entry your training course completion. You do get a certificate and recognition on our end. You get an email that shoots confetti and things like that. So, I mean, we do promote that. You get a certificate, and it is tracked within your system, too.
All right, I just think that we should be promoting that as much as possible, as far as getting people trained and just giving them those skills to move forward. So that's all.
Aaron?
Thank
So
you.
what we used to do, and hopefully maybe we'll do it when we talk about the performance appraisals, is, and Cheryl knows this because she's been around almost since dirt.
Almost.
I said Christine's been around since dirt earlier, is we used to build into the performance evaluation some points. You could only get to a certain raise level because the points on your evaluation converted to your merit. All of it was merit at that point, which I think is not the right way to do it, but, and based on your goals and objectives that you would identify, and also based on your training. And we used to require people to get training, and they have to. It sounds like you guys are tracking it still, so that's really good. But also one of the problems we had in the past was managers would not allow training if it didn't relate to their position. So the way Kim just described it is getting additional training that might lead to a promotion. And sometimes managers are very threatened and they're jealous and they won't approve training that they might be threatened by if that team member gets that training. That's also the education leave policy somehow needs to factor in all this, because education leave is just like the remote work. It's up to the complete discretion of the supervisor. And we've seen supervisors that, again, were threatened by if somebody was getting a college degree and they didn't have a college degree, and they would deny access to both training and through the education leave opportunity, which is 6 hours a week.
6 hours a week.
Of release time. So hopefully if we get back to the point where we're building this back into their performance evaluations and they get points for it, so that's an incentive because it will affect how much the raise could be if we have a merit system, or it could also be additional educational opportunity, and that's got a financial value because you get paid release time to take college classes for up to 6 hours.
6 hours.
We don't pay for your education, although there was a famous person who got an accounting degree who worked at the Big Bear, who was not tribal. But anyways, so there should be an incentive for it so that we reward people in addition to the way that you treat them and celebrate their victory, but also give them a financial benefit for doing it too.
Okay, we can keep going, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you. So now, as we looked at the umbrella underneath the HR department, which is HR admin, HR training department, HR employee relations, and then HR employment itself. So the services that we have, and to conclude and to wrap up here, HR administration itself is in the midst of 4 compensation classification studies. We have looked at feedback and review as far as downsizing policy, feedback review of enterprise downside to include policy, procedure, adherence, and process, years of service longevity, how many job descriptions themselves had been processed from June to December, FLSA request process, your leave of absence, their wage reviews themselves. These are different type of measurements that the HR administrative office, what they run through routinely. Employment verifications, file audits, personnel records, remote work database design and tracking. We do have all that data on as far as who's approved and who did decline at initial inset, exit interview, distribution and reporting, annual team building picnic. When we look at this employment screen, the corrective action to the hiring process, the things that we've done before even coming back to you with the hiring policies themselves, is we've updated our applicant tracking software. The QR codes, the instant notice, the different ways as an applicant and a hiring manager. Not only have we implemented applicant pools themselves, there are hiring managers that love this new process, and they are, if you post a position, I'll give you an example, I will use the Big Bear. The Big Bear Arena, if they were to post a maintenance worker position today, employment coordinates with that hiring manager on the spot when that position is posted, and that hiring manager gets to see every activity in that job file that is privy to them. Once those are screened, they can see if someone applies for their job at 9 o'clock at night. Now, they do wait until the application is screened through employment, but they are involved in the entire process. This is a very nice process for the applicant pool for the hard-to-fill positions such as maintenance and custodians in certain areas within the company. The hiring managers themselves, there's a few in this process that they speak highly of it, and they love this new mechanism. The customized training builds, you give us a topic, we'll customize that training session for you. We've completed the ADP, the new Chronos system coming out. As far as that, the virtual training online course for it, not the ADP, the company that the work group's doing, but we took it a step further. You'll be able to take home a resource manual. Heather herself, the training supervisor, she is the trainer. With that program itself, she is one of the lead trainers for the whole thing so that she can accommodate the company. On-site new hire paperwork, we talked about that. Dan Doyle reached out to me in the fall, got together with employment and his directors, and we created on-the-spot hiring. We did the same thing for the golf courses, Tanglewood and Hessel. I got with his team. So the West End and outlying areas to make the process more efficient, work together. Look at the on-the-spot hiring, train them on how to do I-9s, compliance, screening applications, PAF paperwork, and so on. We continue to do the job fairs and career fairs. We're looking at the option right now of doing go ahead.
Good. Yep, good.
Yeah, so that on-the-spot training, or the on-the-spot hiring, besides, you mentioned Dan, good job, Dan. Does anybody else take part in that?
Yeah, our outlying areas is who we focus on. We started out with Dan in our outlying areas for quicker and ease, because you have to, I'll give you an example, in the West End, if that position requires a pre-employment test, drug screening, we set it up at the local health clinic there and did one better. Instead of driving an hour from Munising to the other one, we have our agency there that does our pre-employment screenings. They'll do it there. So it's having those back, for the outlying areas, they run into more steps, and we took care of that together. Golf courses was a good one too because of the high demand and the need, and quick, right? We got spring coming, so those are examples.
like here in the Sioux, is that on-site work at all? I mean,
Well, I'll be honest with you, here in the Sioux, we're here in the Sioux. They come in right that day.
Well, yeah,
So,
but still, there's 8 weeks in a lag, you said, in some positions. So
Yeah.
what I'm asking is, does anybody utilize it up here to, I mean, if it's there, why wouldn't they? Never mind. We'll talk on the
Okay.
next workshop.
Okay,
Okay, we can keep going.
okay, thank you. The recruitment, department-specific advertisement, working with the health division continually, one-on-one resume building, things like that we talked about. The hiring process, being involved in the work group as far as the summer interns, being proactive on, we have a lot of hires coming in and out when you talk layoffs and seasonal, right? We have mechanisms in place that we already do for that. So we're ready for them. We know when the student workers are coming, we know when they're leaving, we know when Big Bear seasonal people, their demands. That's because we work together with them. Joni and them out at housing and that, they'll be recalling some people off, putting them on layoff, bringing them back, things like that. The quicker we're proactive and waiting for those to come in and being familiar with those dates, quicker people get in and out. Employee relations itself, this whole thing is based around the management team, the buy-in from the management team to reach out, take the training, work closely with us so that you understand to be proactive before you process a termination, conflict resolution and communication, doing that before you're actually having an issue with your team member. There's many different things in here that Jeff does, his team does diligently. When you come to our orientation department, if you are a manager and supervisor, you get a separate orientation session. You don't leave there without seeing employee relations, myself, and the management team, so that you know what to expect, the tips and the tricks we can give you as a new manager or supervisor coming aboard, and that open relationship in case you run into any issues after your onboarding. Training department, again, the different type of customized training session builds, management series has the grievance complaint process, due process, effective hiring and interview process. We have the performance appraisal ready to go. We have a 5th in design now. These are actual lengthy trainings that you need. These are usually done in person, and you get the resource manual to take back with you. It's not uncommon for a department to ask their entire management team to join, take that management series training together. We'll come to your site and conduct that. Cultural training, consistently doing different types of, when we're doing management training sessions, a lot of the different departments within our areas will ask for a touch of cultural. I can tell you for our department, our professional development trainings that we do for our staff, I will have it on site, keep the office open, but we have a professional development training that we do for HR department staff. We always smudge first, and we will ask. One of our last ones we did, concluded our training session. It was a team building session. We made dream catchers. So we have a cultural trainer on staff, and we did that a part of our professional development. Again, I talked earlier about the one-on-one executive, the onboarding portion with the key executives and directors. Examples were the elder care division director. Hello, James, behind me, the CEO for health, the CIO, and 2 previous chief judges. So it's that one-on-one time that they need, and that they meet this all in the HR department, your management team directly. Training department. So we do have your professional development courses and tracking. We do offer massive different types of customized trainings, professional development. For enterprise, we are TIPS trained and certified, so that made the bringing people on at the golf courses. If you're serving alcohol and that, we train you right there as a TIPS trainer, so you can start and meet that part. The ADP, the new Chronos replacement program coming, like I said, our training supervisor, there's a large work group on this process within the company. She is, our training supervisor is one of the actual trainers, and we're going to take a step better. We're going to do the virtual training courses that for that to include a resource manual for you to take away with you. the popular one-on-one customized training builds that we do. One that's missing in here by popular demand is the e-tech system and infogenesis. It's old, but we're nearly completed with that resource manual itself. These are popular ones that people request routinely. Lack of participation in professional development and training, getting that buy-in to make them attend, looking at mandatory training sessions, right? And having them attend. Any questions?
I took the tips training because we got in trouble several years back, so they required several high-level staff, and I got one question wrong, because I refused to serve a pregnant woman. By law, if a woman is pregnant, she wants to be served, you have to serve her.
I think you mentioned that.
Okay, final.
That wasn't right, but I said, nope, I won't do it.
Okay, final opportunity, questions, comments for government HR before we turn things over to the casino for their presentation. Lana?
We still have like mandatory training that people have to go to once a year or something.
Annual training sessions, yes.
How does that look?
It's going okay on that end. I'll give a shout out to those that are, we have a few others that we need to capture within a certain division, and it goes well. What does it look like? Those top customer
just wondering
service,
if-
cultural
if-
diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if like sexual harassment, things like that, if they have to have it, if they're keeping up on, if managers are making staff keep up on that, because
Well, sexual harassment itself is not a required training, but it
I
is a
think
part of the
yeah.
mandatory. I misheard you. It is part of some of the mandatory sessions, yeah.
okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yeah,
I did
thanks,
have
Cheryl.
one thing before we wrapped up. I appreciate the time today. I'm looking forward to coming back. But I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to everybody in the company, the leadership. And I want to give a big shout out to individuals that help the HR department. Where I'm at right now, we're still not fully operational. IT was with us last week. They did a great job setting us up. So keep in mind, please continue to be patient. We're about 70% capacity. But we're still trickling through that. But it's important for me to give you that thank you to those in leadership, IT department, gaming commission's probably sitting behind me. How do you think we got badges? We ran around with paper, right? He was quick. Gaming Commission dealt with us in the busy because we kept hiring. Our HR department was hoping. We brought on 24 people. We literally took paper copies and ran back and forth and signatures at downtown at admin, the executive office themselves dealing with all of these. We kept hiring. We had people through this entire phase, right? One of our biggest orientations was after we crashed. So our process is, I need to give kudos to those people that we probably drove nuts. Gaming Commission on badges. Big shout out to the lab at the Tribal Health Clinic, running those pre-employment. We were hiring, and so we were working together to get these people on. Big shout out to the payroll team and accounting team downtown on Ashland. Keep in mind, visualize this HR department when everything was closed down and that. We were running back and forth with paper. There are amazing people in this company. We got together as a work group. We brought 24 people on. Those are new hires. We probably did others too. So I have to, if I miss anyone, I apologize. Those are the people I was hounding every day. Thank you, IT department. So please be patient with us, but really proud of the entire process. It got tricky, and I need to give that recognition there.
Okay, I appreciate it,
Thank you.
Cheryl. Okay, casino, you guys ready?
Boy, it's stiff.
Are we going to wait for everybody here?
Yeah.
Okay.
How come the door really loud like that?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Diane Slager, the Quinn Casino HR Director. I'm happy to meet with you today to talk about our data. I do not have a PowerPoint. I'm hoping that we can resolve and have conversations about some of the key issues and questions that you all had that you submitted to us in January. So ultimately, I hope you, Lana, everybody here has the answers to these questions. I think I'd like to start the conversation by saying, as of March 1st, 2025, it will be a full year of Quinn Casino being fully operational. And what I mean by that is that we basically handle all processes from hiring to policy reviews and employee relations and trainings. So we're very proud about that. We are doing that with a staff of 7. And our typical hiring timeline is 7 days from rec to first day. It is common for it to be 10 days for any company to hire an employee. And so we're really proud about the employees that work for HR is that really they're very experienced and they know what they're doing for their job. So they are very efficient in what they're doing, and that's why we're able to do that within 7 days. Keep in mind, we have many positions that we can hire within 15 to 30 minutes. So it's really about making sure that we have a good process, a great application software, and that we stay communicating. So I am open for any kind of conversation. I don't know if you want me to go through all the questions and answers, if that would be a better way of going about this.
Well, how about this, because it's getting later in the day?
Sure.
And you've already stated that casino HR has been in existence for about a year. And we previously stated that we asked your HR along with government HR to come back with some measurable statistics so we can see how each HR is doing compared to one another. And with an HR with half the employees, we're seeing some really impressive results. So what are some changes that you made with the hiring practice that was able to achieve the results that we have here today?
Yes, those are all really key factors, right? I think the number one factor was to determine what was causing the delays to begin with, and just really looking at our processes to begin with and saying, what would make this better? I think part of it is experienced, qualified staff, okay? You have to have employment staff who understand jobs, requirements. So I think that what we have on our team is a very senior and advanced staff, okay, who are very enthusiastic. Of course, the other thing was our drug testing. We really looked at our drug testing and saying, well, this is one thing that I found out when we started Quain HR. We only had 4 openings per day in the Sioux for drug testing. So what does that tell you? It tells you that I can only hire 4 people a day. So there's a max, right? There's only 4 openings at the health center to go in and get drug tested. So that causes a barrier. Like, I know that when I first started to work for the tribe, one of the questions I kept asking our HR office was this: what is our capacity to hire in a day? How many people can we really hire? It takes time, it takes energy, it takes appointments. How long does it take to do paperwork? Really, so understanding some of those basic principals will tell you how many people you're actually going to hire in a year, in a day. So I knew that the drug testing was also not a real good indicator whether or not someone was on a drug, let's be honest, okay? It's not an observed drug testing. It's all pre-planned. And it's not also saying that they're not going to show up to work the next day on a drug. So it really wasn't a good tool to determine whether or not we should hire them. How we determine that is, are they coming to work? Are they doing their job? Are they efficient at their job? Are they doing what we're asking? And are they satisfied in it? So that's one thing. The other thing was our application software. It was very delayed. The other thing was it wasn't truly used in the ways that it should be used to measure, okay? Software is only as good as the people using it. So you have to be aware that all the key points in that software to help us use the tool efficiently. So that was the other really key thing. Also, it comes to keeping people, right? So we're talking about recruiting and we're talking about retaining. So the other key point that I knew that we were going to focus on this year was going to be learning about the casino, learning about its managers, and understanding how we can go in and provide them tools to do their job better and keep their people. So it's a very short list, but it takes a lot of, there's a lot that goes into that, right? It's a lot of communication, it's daily communication, it's sometimes not providing trainings via Zoom or email, although we do use those. It's sometimes just sitting with a manager. Sometimes we are hiring people who may not have all skills to be an efficient manager, but how can we build their skills to be that efficient manager?
Okay. Does anyone from the Board of Directors have any questions or comments? And for everyone's information, Diane worked in government HR, and obviously now she's in charge of casino HR, so she's seen both sides of it.
No questions?
Go ahead. Yep.
Real quick. So I know that we separated out and you used to work there and we still have, now we have the two. What's the communication level between you as the director on the Kuwaitan side and Cheryl as the director on the governmental side? Is there a mesh there?
Well, Cheryl and I certainly communicate. I mean, we have to, right? I mean, we work in the same
What I'm asking,
organization. We have to talk about some of the issues that we're having. I mean, I know that we have a key issue that we're having right now. We haven't talked about it yet. I don't know if we want to talk about it, but we have to communicate. Do we always see eye to eye? No. In many ways, that's a good thing too, right? And we certainly can debate. We can certainly talk about it. I think we certainly understand each other from where we're both sitting. So hopefully that answers your question.
Well, no, it doesn't, because there's a big gap here between
Okay.
governmental HR, it sounds like, from an 8-week delay in some aspects.
Sure.
To a 7-day turnaround to hire in positions. So my question being, we're all on the same team, maybe not under the same umbrella, but we're all on the same team. So I'm wondering how we could get better at, figuring out what's working, obviously, for Kuwaitan and getting people in the door and recruiting and retaining them. And then some of the problems, because it would seem to me, just from your disposition, and this is a compliment, if I was a manager and you were the HR director and I was dragging my feet on a position, you have a 7-day rule that you want those positions filled. So I would be saying, she can be calling me up on the phone here pretty soon, I better get my butt in gear.
Well, our
to
Linda
get-
and Christy would, and they
Okay.
would say, oh, do you need this person? Apparently, it doesn't look like you need this person.
Right.
Right?
So, and that's what I'm saying, your best assets, can those be expanded out for the benefit of both HRs? And I just don't understand why one can be so grooming so well and the other one sometimes, not as well.
So if you're asking me, should I communicate what's working for me with Cheryl?
Has that happened?
Yes, we talked about it today.
Okay.
So we do talk about that, but My job is not, and Cheryl's job is not to make sure that Diane and Cheryl are doing their job in the best way possible. Do we want to work together? 100% we do. We both understand each other very well, and we do have a good communication and a good relationship. But we work with different divisions, with different goals, with different leaders, and there are barriers in some of that. I mean, to be quite honest with you, governmental probably couldn't totally erase doing pre-employment drug testing. Let's be honest. They can't do that. We, however, could. And it's actually working for us, right? We don't really have any complaints. We don't really see a lot of people that are coming to us that are under the influence of something. So it is working, but I don't really know what you're trying to ask me. So. I think I got my answer. Okay.
Okay, Kim, did you have your hand up? Okay, Kim, then Aaron.
How many employees are under the QA umbrella?
How many, as of today?
Yeah, that your human resource would deal with.
As of today, we have 733, or 731, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yes, probably 33, because there's probably some PAFs on the desk.
Give or take.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay, Aaron.
So I would say an obvious difference is we probably, if we modeled our HR in a governmental fashion, so you'll understand this probably better than most people. And on the governmental side, most of the team members that we're filling are semi-professional positions or professional positions, right? With
Well,
some
we have a lot of
minimum.
professional positions too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
No, I understand that. I was going to get to that. But if you look at the composition of each employment as a base, there's many more entry-level people on the casino side than there are on the governmental side. So, and the education requirements are significantly different between the casino side and the governmental side. So, unless you're talking executive positions, because not all of our director positions on the casino side require education. They do require experience. So it seems like we were fitting a square peg in a round hole by having the casino have to conform to governmental HR and employment policy in that environment. So we do have frontline entry-level people on the governmental side as well, but it's not the vast majority of the team members. So I think if you took a look at the composition of both sides of the aisle, you would see significant differences, both in pay level, in education level, and experience requirements. And so streamlining the process for the casino so that a business can fill positions in an expedited way makes a lot of sense. Now, that doesn't imply that on the governmental side, that we should take a month or two to fill positions on the governmental side, because as long as a position's vacant, the longer it's vacant, the greater we demonstrate the position wasn't essential in the first place. That's the part that drives me crazy when managers don't figure it out, right? And I've seen people over the years, I've seen managers that are good managers and directors who figure it out, because they're not going to sit back and say, well, I don't know, I'm not sure. I called HR and I'm not quite sure. And it sounds really kind of denigrating for me to describe it that way, but I can tell you, and I look around the room and the governmental managers can tell you that unless somebody is holding their hand and making them do it, it can happen. You can work the system to make it happen quickly. You could, the same thing was true, and a lot of people figured out how to work the compensation factors and write job descriptions and stuff. But so they're different creatures. So I think it does make sense to have a different approach for filling positions on the casino side, especially the service industry, to get people filled in positions quickly. The turnover's higher probably on the casino side as well, so that you have a need to turn people over and get more people in the pipeline, not the pipeline, we don't say pipeline, more people in the track. So I'm glad that you guys work collectively really well. I think that this and I felt this since I've come back, there seems to be an undercurrent of wanting this divide to measure up against each other and to find something deficient on one side or the other. And the thing is, we don't need to waste time on that because they're different creatures. And I would also say, although I do think there's some economy of scale, so that when across the three departments, the three HR functions, that we aren't, if there's something that we can do in a consolidated fashion across them, we should do that because there's an economy of scale, there's an efficiency, there's a work classification sort of expertise that we can capitalize on. But the health division is going to be different entirely because the health division is kind of quasi-governmental, but it's also enterprise focused because the longer we take to fill an enterprise, a provider position, the longer we don't have that third-party revenue. And those positions on the health side can pay for themselves, just like an enterprise. So I think it's right that we've moved in this direction. I don't think we should spend a lot of time trying to figure out who's not doing right and trying to find fault with each other, trying to pit each other against each other. And I'm not saying anybody here today did that, but I'm saying since I've been back, I've kind of had the feeling that we're trying to find fault with the decision the board made to divide up the departments. We were this way at one time, and we thought that we were going to be more efficient by consolidating, and we were wrong. So let's just take that learning experience and move on.
Okay, I appreciate it, Aaron. And what I view this as is, you can examine what the different HR departments are doing, and you can find positives, and you can learn from certain HR departments. So, for example, once health gets their HR department up and running, if they're doing something that's really innovative, something that's causing them to fill positions very quickly, maybe there's something that the other HRs can learn from that, and that's the whole goal of this thing. And at the end of the day, we know what we need to do. We need to be able to hire people quicker. We need to improve callback times. There's no excuse when someone applies for a position and they have to wait several months to get a callback. Things like that, and those things don't cost anything. It just requires a little bit more elbow grease. Yeah. So, any final questions for Casino HR? And this is going to be just one conversation in a series of several. Okay, I appreciate it. Mike Pins, you want to come up?
Good afternoon. I was asked to provide some deliverables on some background check metric times. Our turnaround at the Gaming Commission has significantly been more efficient. We've done a lot of computerized processing, team members involved in the brick and mortar of this, getting this off the ground. So for Quaden HR, and these are for gaming license strictly, governmental HR has a few gaming license positions within IT and purchasing, some accounting. But for Quaden HR, our average overall time for background turnaround is 3.2 hours. That would be for disclosures, pre-gaming license checks. A lot of times if somebody has a disclosure, they disclose a crime that may prevent them from obtaining a gaming license, they'll disclose it pre-application, so it kind of weeds out that process of having to go through the weeds, offer a position, and then find out that the person would not qualify for a gaming license, so it kind of slows that down. The FMLA returns, we have to run somebody that's been gone in absence longer than 7 days, so that one is 3.2 for Quaden. Sioux Tribe HR background is 7.4 hours on average. That includes the time that we get it to the time that it goes back out. The overall average for all of the backgrounds is 5.06 hours. So these metrics are for Quaden from about the end of March is when they begin their process of 24. Sioux Tribe Government will handle all of the gaming license activity for HR and hiring prior to that.
Okay, any questions or comments for Mike? Okay, go ahead.
Are you doing all background checks now for governmental and Kuwaitan?
Yes. We also do Sioux Tribe Housing. We have a contract with JKL Buwading to do their background checks, and Demwading Housing for EDC.
Okay, and I guess I have one more question. How long does it take once we get somebody in a drug screen? How long does that take to come back? Maybe you don't have that answer, but.
That I don't have, but can I re-clarify that answer on the all backgrounds? We do not do all backgrounds. So there's an adjudicated background that is required under the Indian Family Violence and Child Protection Act. That is a background check in which the government HR performs. That's an individual having to go through and do a point system on somebody's background. So a conviction doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get disqualified. You can have things that aren't convictions that can disqualify you from passing the background check under that standard. So we provide the information to the background investigator that does that adjudication. We provide the raw data. They make the determination. We make no determinations. So on these backgrounds, I will make if for Sioux Tribe Governmental, we don't make the determination on whether they're hired or not. We only provide them the raw data. They apply their metrics and their requirements to the backgrounds.
Okay. So, yeah, I had just our directors back there for HR, if they could answer how long those drug screens take to, if they don't mind. Okay, so if it's done by 4 PM that day, no later than the next morning. Okay. So, yeah, we definitely got to expedite something. If neither one of these are taking even 24 hours, it should never take 2 months to get somebody in the door. So I'm going to leave that there. So whatever we need to change policy and procedure-wise to get that moving, that explains so much. So we need to definitely get something moving.
Cheryl, do you have something to add?
Diane does too.
Why don't you come up, though, and then use the microphone so people on Zoom and the membership online can hear you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to sit back there and yell, but Mike just gave a good description. There are different types of background checks. There's a background check process. There is a background check process that we do within our HR department that follows ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, which is care and control over children. And those are for covered positions and safety positions. Then he does different types of checks for us for gaming lien covered positions such as shipping and receiving and purchasing. And so you just gave a good example earlier on. There's different types of background checks. There's an adjudication process. I'm a certified adjudicator, so are both of my employee relations staff. There is a scoring and mechanism involved in that. It is the raw data on whether or not someone can actually say they have a statutory bar or felony. So I just would like to share, there are different types of background checks.
Which I understand.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
absolutely understand that.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Okay.
And maybe moving forward, if we can look at what does that look like, right, per department? And so how does that look? And that way, maybe we can change policy and procedure where we can, and where we have to spend a little more time, that's what we have to do. But I think we definitely need to look at how that's working and what we need to do.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Mike, anything else to cover?
Nothing else. If you have anybody has any questions on the back.
Last chance, questions, comments? All right, let's let staff go home. Workshop adjourned. Thank you, everybody.